Dubai is on a mission to become the top tourist destination on the planet. This emirate has almost tripled its coastline by building the Palm, a vast palm-shaped city at sea. Now Dubai plans to put itself firmly on the map by recreating the world. 300 man-made islands constructed out in the Arabian Gulf. It's the biggest reclamation project ever undertaken.
No project of this scale made by man has ever been done or attempted.
The world can only be built of natural elements, a demand by the Sheikh, but it must defy nature's most destructive force, the sea. Engineers will battle against time and nature to create this man-made wonder, visible from space.
Dubai is an amazing place because you're limited purely by your imagination and the laws of physics.
But will the creation of this megastructure push Dubai to the limit? Since the 1960s, Dubai has undergone a remarkable transformation. No project is too big. A third of the world's cranes operate here. Buildings spring up almost overnight. Money seems no object. But there is a problem. Dubai is built on the profits of its oil reserve. At its peak, it produced 91 million barrels a year, worth $1.5 billion. It's estimated by 2016 the oil supply will run dry. The lucrative oil fields will cease to operate. Dubai must change from an emirate reliant on oil to a land fueled by tourism. And they must succeed to survive. Dubai's Crown Prince, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, has an audacious plan to turn Dubai into a world-class tourist destination. Sultan bin Sulayem, chairman of the project, has total faith in his ruler's wishes.
He believes in doing something. He believes in taking charge. He believes in leading people toward their future, their bright future.
Over the years, the Maktoum dynasty has metamorphosized Dubai from a small fishing village to a multinational finance center for the Middle East. The tourism makeover began over a decade ago with the building of the Burj Al Arab. An iconic landmark, the Burj is one of the most exclusive hotels in the world with a 7-star reputation. The Maktoums have also built vast themed shopping malls, golf courses in the desert, ski slopes in the dunes, and revolutionized the coastline. 2 enormous reclaimed palm islands stretch 10 kilometers out to sea, with a third, even larger one under construction. These mini-cities took 6 years to create, using millions of tons of rock and sand. 8,000 deluxe mansions and apartments have been built, housing 80,000 people. The Palm Islands increased Dubai's beaches by an astounding 112 kilometers. But this is not enough for the projected expansion of this emirate. Investors want more, not just their own houses in the sun, but their own islands. So the Sheikh comes up with his boldest plan yet, a design far more complicated than the Palm. He will build an island chain in the shape of the whole world, an iconic global landmark surpassing all Dubai's previous projects. Louis Ajamil, the master planner, knows the world could be the most unique structure on the planet.
There's nothing like this anywhere. We tried to find anything that of comparable scale that's been made by man. It has never been done. This literally has never been done.
For future investors, the world is the perfect project. A blank canvas to build your own private dream in a highly exclusive environment. Millionaire developers from Ireland, Raymond and Andrew, know a good thing when they see one.
We've been watching this whole development being created. We think it's fantastic. I think it's going to become the top tourist destination in the world. and why not invest in it?
They snap up Ireland for a cool $38 million before it even exists. Their plan is to build the Emerald Isle in the sun. A 3-bed house will cost $2 million. But the world project is a long way off. It will take 5 years to create the islands and another 2 before there are houses on them. Sultan bin Sulayem knows it's Dubai's biggest undertaking.
I felt worried because this is never been attempted, but being so passionate about the project, I said, I think we can do that.
The original plan was to create the 7 continents in single sections, but the Sheikh quickly realized that no one will buy such big plots. Instead, he decided to divide the world into lots of little sandbars. Each investor can have their own private island. Hamza Mustafa is the man who has to deliver the Sheikh's dream. He knows just how important the project is to Dubai's future.
There was an element of fear. This is an ambitious project. And this is a project that will put Dubai on the map.
When it's built, 300 sand islands will rise out of the sea. Future investors will be able to buy their own part of the globe, anywhere from England or France to the different states of America. Finally, in September 2003, Dubai goes public with the plan. And the world's media love it. Only in Dubai would they create such an audacious structure. But environmentalists are worried. They fear the land reclamation will dig up the seabed, destroying the local coral and marine ecology. The Sheikh responds by directing that the world must only be built of rock and sand. His decision makes the project more environmentally friendly and far more difficult. Now, developers need to find a location for this gigantic project. The coastline is filling up with palm-shaped islands. There's no more room close to the shore for the enormous world islands designed to cover an area almost the size of Manhattan.
People said that we were mad. People said that this can't be done. You guys are living in fantasy land. That's the best one that I've heard. And we were persistent. We said, no, it can be done.
To accommodate the projected increase in tourists, Dubai needs more beachfront. The world islands are the perfect answer. But the only site big enough to build a megastructure that is 9 kilometers by 7 kilometers is 4 kilometers out at sea. But unlike the Palm Island, the world will not be accessible by bridge and will be completely cut off from Dubai's city infrastructure. The location will add to the exclusivity of this megastructure. But it will give the engineers logistical headaches. Instead of driving out to the construction site as they did with the Palm, everything will have to get there by boat.
It comes with its own set of challenges. Logistics, infrastructure, utilities, transportation, the list goes on.
And there is more to the task than finding the location. The Sheikh sets a deadline of 2008 for the first stage, the completion of the land reclamation, leaving time for the infrastructure to be built before 2016. It's a tall order, but Dubai has the best reclamation engineers right on their doorstep. Van Oord, one of the largest reclamation companies in the world, is already in Dubai building the Palm Islands. But because the palms are still under construction, many of their experts and boats are in use. Can these engineers pull off building the world islands at the same time? Jan Schaat, head of the construction team, knows he has a big job ahead of him.
Logistically, it's a huge operation. We have 300 million cubic meters of sand to place and 30 million tons of rock. So that's a lot.
He must find barges, cranes, tugboats and dredgers to move and place this enormous amount of material.
Our biggest headache from the beginning, the organization, and to get the huge amount of volume of rock to the project site.
The build must begin as soon as possible. The job must be completed in 5 years. This unique project needs a sea defense to protect it, but no one has designed a breakwater for a structure like this before. Development for such a vital creation would usually take years, but the world needs it now. December 2003, 6 months after Dubai's World Islands hit the global media, the project is still only a design on paper. At the Sheikh's demand, the islands can only be built of sand and rock instead of concrete and steel. It makes construction much more complicated. Engineers will scoop sand from the sea floor and rainbow blast it into the construction site to create the islands. It's just what they did with the Palm, but on an unprecedented scale.
We're moving the most amount of sand ever moved by man, 350 million cubic meters of material.
But it's not going to be easy building these islands out in the middle of the Arabian Gulf.
The big challenge of this one is that if we start with the sand, due to the wave action and the currents, there is a risk of erosion.
Erosion will constantly affect this megastructure. Waves attack the sand as soon as it hits the water. Engineers are going to have to prevent the destruction of these islands on a daily basis. To protect them, they're going to need a strong sea wall. At first, the engineers hope they can replicate the Palm Islands breakwater on a larger scale. Its pyramid-shaped wall, armored with rocks, weighing up to 6 tons each, can withstand the force of the sea. But the Sheikh insists that the world's 25-kilometer breakwater must not ruin the view of the sea. It must be as low as possible. The Palm's barrier rises too high above the waves and blocks the view. This design won't work for the World Islands. It's back to the drawing board. Ronald Stiefer, the man entrusted with this task, knows the whole project depends on his sea defense.
The sea is one of the most important factors you have to take into account. People underestimate the forces of a wave. It's huge.
The breakwater will have to withstand the force of the freak Shamal storms. Great storms from the north that strike the coastline twice a year, bringing 2-meter waves. But at the same time, this sea wall must lie low in the water. Designing the world's breakwater is difficult but vital.
It was not really an easy thing to do, but you know, we have a lot of experience. In Holland, we are fighting sea for centuries, so we thought we should give it a try. This is not feasible.
Ronald must find an answer quickly. The construction team needs to start the build. Their 5-year contract has already started. Without a strong protective breakwater, the islands could be washed away in weeks. Ronald has a flash of inspiration.
I generated the idea sitting in the airplane, flying to Dubai. You know, when you are relaxed, then you have the best ideas.
His groundbreaking invention is a long-stepped breakwater. The idea is inspired by nature and the coral reefs in the Maldives. The low, wide reefs are the perfect barrier for the great force of the sea. In Dubai, the World Islands designers will build an artificial reef in the Arabian Gulf around their man-made wonder. The design works in several stages, reducing the energy of the wave from 100% to 5%. The first slope of the step trips the wave, taking out half of its energy. Then, as the wave travels along the horizontal part of the step, the shallower water causes further friction. As it hits the second step, its force is reduced again. And finally, the wave is almost completely stopped as it breaks over the top of the breakwater. But Ronald needs to know for sure that his pioneering reef will work.
If you really have it seriously wrong, then the waves will enter this area. That means the islands will be partly washed away. You will have a lot of damage to the beaches, to the structures on the islands. It would be a disaster.
To test the theory, Ronald and his team build a miniature version in a 50-meter tank. The gradient of the steps are carefully calculated. For weeks, waves of all different sizes batter the mini breakwater. Initial results seem to show the artificial reef is the perfect solution and meets the Sheikh's low-lying design plans. The engineers continue testing, but the design is given the go-ahead. Out at sea, the construction company has an even more complicated task: building the islands. The World is the largest reclamation project ever awarded to one company. 7 dredgers, 17 boats, 9 cranes, 320 million cubic meters of sand and 32 million tons of rock are needed to create it. Barges take to the sea full of 4-ton boulders that must be dropped into position on the sea floor. Dredgers travel 13 kilometers out to sea. These vast boats suck up sand from the seabed. In a 6-hour round trip, they can move enough to fill almost 10 Olympic swimming pools. Back at the construction site, these dredgers rainbow blast in the sand to create the islands. From the start, the pressure is on. Winter is due in a few months' time. The construction team knows that the winter Shamal storms that strike from the northwest will be their greatest enemy. The build must begin at the top left corner of the world. The engineers need this part of the breakwater to protect Alaska, Canada, and the west coast of America before the storms hit. There's a lot to do in just 6 months, but the vessels are pushed to the limit. From the start, Jos Martens, captain of the dredger, is fighting to keep to the deadline.
The hardest thing on this job is finishing in time with keeping the vessel operational as long as possible.
The Sheikh has set a tight deadline. In 5 years, a 25-kilometer breakwater and 300 sand islands must be created. And all the time, the waves are constantly battering the project. Can the construction team keep to the deadline and protect this mega structure from the full wrath of the sea? Ideally, they would build the breakwater first to protect the islands from wave erosion. But this will take too long, and the construction team won't make the deadline. There is only one solution.
We had to start with the reclamation and simultaneously with the breakwater.
The breakwater and the islands will grow together for maximum protection. Thousands of tons of sand will be poured into this construction site to create the 300 islands. But the engineers soon run headlong into a natural obstacle. With so much reclamation going on for the Palm Islands, Dubai is running out of local dredgeable sand, and the world build has barely started. Although Dubai is surrounded by desert, what the engineers need is marine sand. Coarse sand that packs tightly together and won't pollute the local environment.
This is the sand we need. Marine soil. Sand that's been treated. Sand that's been in the seabed. Sand that it's used to the seawater. We can't use desert sand.
Dubai's vast amount of reclamation has already exhausted all the sand within a few kilometers of its shores. Engineers must not dredge more than a few meters of the seabed, or the sea floor can't regenerate itself. Everyone studies the charts for new sites. The search for sand sends dredgers further out into the Gulf, closer to Dubai's boundary with international waters and their off-limits seabeds.
Every time the dredgers go farther, that means they're going to spend more diesel. That means there's going to be more money. And somebody's going to be upset.
It also means these vessels now become home for the teams of men working on board. For 6 weeks, these 45 men won't set foot on dry land. It's the only way to meet the 5-year deadline. Everyone feels the pressure.
If you don't perform, then they will stop the contract.
To keep on track, 450-ton dredging arms are lowered to the sea floor. Cutter claws churn up the seabed, sucking the sand into its enormous tanks. The dredgers take 8 hours to haul this cargo back to the construction site and rainbow it into position. And this is the last of Dubai's sand. Once it's gone, Dubai will be forced to stop their dredging projects. 1 month into construction, and the world is beginning to take shape. Millions of tons of sand are poured into this vast construction site, and many islands lie just under the water. April 2004, the first island breaks the surface. It's the moment everyone has been waiting for.
The first island that came up was Dubai. That was the happiest moment of my life. It's like a mother just gave birth.
In the following months, more islands rise above the waves. Northwest America, Asia, and the Middle East begin to appear. The exclusive dream is finally becoming a reality. For the first time, multi-million-dollar property developers like Andrew Brett can see their own islands.
We look out the window of the plane every time we fly over now and point out and make sure everyone sitting near us can hear as well that we have an island down there.
It's from the air that this man-made wonder comes to life. Each island has to be exactly the right shape to create a perfect map of the globe. It requires total precision. The only way to get it, GPS and satellite images.
Without DGPS, we are not capable of building the world at the correct position and the correct shape.
High-tech receivers are strapped to the backs of engineers who walk the perimeters of the islands. They are measuring the height and shape of each one, a tough job in searing 40-degree heat. This signal is then relayed back to the dredger, who can rainbow in more sand to the exact location needed. The construction engineers rely on this advanced technology for every step of the project. It's the only way to keep the build running quickly and smoothly.
The most exciting moment of this project is actually when you see the islands coming out. Every time I see an island coming out of the water, it's just a phenomenal feeling. And that's happening every day because these islands, we're getting the islands very quickly up out of the water.
The project seems to be running well. The supply of sand and rock is secure. After nearly 1 year, 13 kilometers of the 25-kilometer breakwater is complete. The reclamation deadline of 5 years seems within reach. And then there's bad news. The designers have discovered new wave data that suggests the breakwater is not up to the job. The artificial reef won't stop the waves from destroying this structure after all.
That was a very bad day. That was a very bad day. Our consultants got it hard.
With the project costing $14 billion, the engineers can't afford to make mistakes. The designs are going to have to be revised. The simplest solution is to increase the height of the breakwater. But the Sheikh has said it must not obstruct the view out to sea. The designers revisit their calculations and work out that if they raise the seawall by just 1 meter, it should be enough to stop the waves without blocking the view. It's an expensive error that costs valuable time and money. May 2005. 15 million tons of limestone has been dropped into the Gulf. It's a painstaking job. Each rock is individually placed. Like the shaping of the islands, the perfect line of the breakwater also relies on top-of-the-range computers and digital GPS. Satellite imagery allows the crane drivers to see exactly where they are and where the rocks need to go. Crane operators like Peter Atkins can place the huge boulders to within an accuracy of just 1 centimetre.
The computer system's just unbelievable, it's amazing. It doesn't fail, it never lets us down. The barges keep coming, one is empty, another one comes in. It's endless.
The job is endless because it has to be. There are still millions of tons of rock to place. But as the world continues to take shape, the engineers face their worst nightmare. The world is in danger of stagnating. The azure seas of this piece of paradise could turn into a swamp. The water is not flowing around the islands properly. The ecology of the area could be in serious jeopardy. Can the engineers find a way to save the world? 1 year in, and the construction of the world islands are fully underway. The engineers battle on. They have just 4 short years to go, or they will lose the contract. But now they face a serious problem that threatens the project to its core. The world is in danger of becoming a stinking swamp. The water is not flowing around the islands as it should. The azure blue seas could turn fetid and green.
The critical thing for this project is that you're going to have crystal clear blue waters for people to swim on. Anything that we did that went against that was a problem for us.
The investors' design plans focus on beachfront properties, a water world where man and nature live in harmony. But suddenly, the dream seems like it could slip away. Seawater tests are taken to monitor the situation. From the start, the engineers have been aware of the risks of slow-moving water and stagnation. The Palm Islands faced a similar challenge. The solution for the Palm was to make 2 gaps in the breakwater that let water in to flush the system. The world breakwater already has gaps. It's built in 5 parts, so the water should flow freely. But when the engineers run the computer simulations, the world still shows signs of slow water flow. The red area does not clear quickly enough. Instead of 4 days for the tide to flush the system, it's taking 8. The problem is the narrow channels around the islands. With so many islands bunched together, the waterways in the center of the world get little water flow. The more islands that are built, the greater the stagnation becomes. No one will be able to swim in the sea and marine life will die.
If there was stagnation in these waters, that means people wouldn't swim because you'd have bad smell. And this project, from a successful project, would turn into the least successful project and the biggest gamble in history.
Finally, the design team finds a clever solution. The channels between the islands must be deepened. By changing the levels of the sea floor, the water will be pushed faster through the world islands. To help the tide keep a constant flow of clean water around the islands, the engineers also need to add another gap in the breakwater on the northern Chamal Reef side, the side that faces the storms.
The problem is, when you create this big opening just in the middle of the Chamal Reef, you are opening the whole reef, and you will ask the Chamal waves to come in. And it can be a big disaster for the stability of the islands.
To stop the waves crashing in through this new gap, engineers overlap the breakwater in front of the opening. This opening allows the strong tides from the north to flush the whole system in 2 days.
So basically, if I dropped a can right here, if there was strong currents, I should expect the can to be somewhere closer to Dubai in another 2 days.
Everyone breathes a sigh of relief. Water readings are clear. The project is back on track. From the start of the project, the Sheikh was aware of the environmentalists' concerns about the local ecology. At its conception, it was argued that dredging the sea floor to create this colossal megastructure would cause damage to sea life and coral beds in the area. Construction went ahead, but using natural materials to limit the pollution rather than toxic materials like concrete and steel. Marine scientist Professor Joe Valencic has been brought in from California to monitor the development.
The typical marine environment before the world was built is nothing more than a sandy area. And this sandy area continually shifts around, moved by waves and currents. It was very, very difficult for any animals to survive because of these shifting conditions.
By building the World Island breakwater, the marine life is given a new stable environment.
The caves, the crevices, the small openings are the ideal environment for fish. It gives them a tremendous amount of protection.
The breakwater has become a 25-kilometer artificial reef, a haven for marine life. Dives are made regularly to keep an eye on the increasing fish stocks. Where there was once a barren desert seabed, now the amount of sea life is hundreds of times greater than before.
life that we have seen here far exceeds what we had predicted. And this makes me extremely happy.
Environmental engineers recently discovered something else they hope will radically improve the marine environment. Diving by the Palm Island, they noticed new seagrasses growing in the area. If they can help it grow on the world islands, the effect on the marine life could be staggering.
For me, it was very exciting to see seagrass in some of the channels here at the World. Now, what it provides in is not only shelter and food, but it oxygenates the water, something that is critical for marine life.
Seagrass is a great thing to have growing on your building site. It's a natural way to keep the environment healthy. Confounding its critics, incredibly, the building of this project has benefited the entire area. The Sheikh's decision to use rock and sand has paid off. 2 years into construction, the basic structure is 70% complete. There are still more than 80 islands to be built.
We're standing on the north coast of Europe, facing the North Atlantic Ocean. In this case, it's open waters because we haven't completed. And right here in the middle will be Iceland. And Iceland will be one of those critical hubs for us, and it will be the last to be built. And eventually then they will close the breakwaters, and the project will be completed from the reclamation point of view.
The end of the first phase, the creation of the islands, is in sight. Once the islands are fully built, the project moves on to the final stage, the building of the infrastructure, the installation of power and pipelines, and the creation of these exclusive resorts. Strict guidelines dictate what materials can be used and how sewage and energy supplies are implemented.
This project has to be green and environmentally sound to start out with. The advantage is that we're creating a city where we have no bounds, so we're able to redesign the way that we think transportation, water supply, wastewater collection, power generation, to create the most efficient system ever attempted by man.
But every aspect of the project design has to be vetted by Nakheel, the developers, first, to fit in with their eco-friendly vision of the world. And Hamza Mustafa is not happy with many of the plans submitted so far.
It's just frustrating when people don't want to actually build according to your vision. And we can understand that, but if we really want to build history today, we have to make sure that we get the right investors, the right owners to fulfill our vision.
But developers' ideals are difficult to live up to. When this deluxe 5-bedroom show home on Greenland was built, the developer's budget was limitless. It took 5 months to build this one residence. The house was brought out in prefabricated sections by boat. Pipework and desalination plants were installed at astronomical cost. Fresh water made on site services the house and the garden. These lawns have to be watered every day. 6 solar panels power the hot water, air conditioning, and emergency alarm systems. This show home demonstrates the amount of work needed to create a fully functioning residence, and it cost a fortune to build. The development plans for the rest of the world are much bigger and more complicated, and their budgets will have to be more realistic. These sand islands are the perfect blank canvas on which to create their wildest dreams. The only thing stopping them is their imagination.
I don't know of any single place that you not only buy a location, but then you can shape your land to meet your dream. So the vision is incredibly important.
Based in Miami, Lewis's team helped the investors realize their ideas. When a client buys an island, the team put the vision on paper. Designs are drawn up and landscaping modifications can be made. If they need to raise the height of the island, Lewis works it out. Within 48 hours, the amended plans are emailed to the construction team in Dubai. Over 11,000 kilometers away, the new data directs the dredger's movements and the plans are realized.
It's awesome to think that from a computer key, you are controlling one of these gigantic dredgers.
The building of the infrastructure is not just about modifying your land. It's about actually installing the vision, creating the houses and resorts. But there is no bridge connecting the world to the mainland. All the materials and workers needed to create these resorts will have to be taken there by boat. Navigating round the narrow channels with tugboats and barges could be a recipe for disaster. For the investors, this phase will be fraught with logistical nightmares. If moving 32 million tons of rock and 320 million cubic meters of sand was a test, the building of the infrastructure will be the most complicated part of the project.
The biggest challenge was really a mental challenge to think the problems through.
A team of 30 people work on the master plan at any one time. At this stage, all they have are sand islands and the investors' dreams. The team's job is to turn paper drawings into reality. And the wealthy clients have ambitious ideas. A Kuwaiti company is the biggest investor so far. It has snapped up Australia and New Zealand, designing Okeana, 20 islands on the southern side of the world. The resort will cover 400,000 square meters, offering a chic ocean lifestyle. The plans involve nearly 2,000 properties, from apartments and mansions to water homes on stilts. An enormous marina will provide its visitors with 1,500 berths. 2 high-end hotels will pander to the whims of the exclusive clients destined for these shores. The Kuwaiti company expects to begin construction in 2008. The creators of Okeana still want to build desert island resorts on desert islands. 4 men from Ireland have a much more outrageous idea. They want to recreate the green rolling hills of Ireland with its dramatic cliffs and beaches in the desert. It's a tall order, but developer Andrew Brett is determined it's going to be authentic.
Everything has to be Irish. It has to look Irish, it has to feel Irish. If we're walking down the street here, it needs to have the same type of feel.
Andrew and his colleague Raymond Norton talk about buying Ireland for months. Suddenly, other investors are showing interest in their island. They must make a decision quickly or they will miss the boat.
My suggestion is before let's just do it. We go for it and we send the money down today.
In true Irish form, the deal is done over a pint in the pub. For Raymond, it's a grand moment.
We sat down, we had a chat, and over 20 minutes we decided this is it, we're going for this. This is a fantastic opportunity. Cheers, lads. Now, big question. Who's sending the money down? So we put our money down the next day.
Could you organise a cheque for $2.5 million to get down to Dubai in the morning?
We've been designing it at a frantic pace with Nikhil now to get it ready.
But it's not going to be an easy job. The plans keep expanding. They want to recreate the lush green countryside, houses and squares, and a themed Irish pub. These audacious plans are all at design stage. Regular meetings with the master planners keep the project on track.
The slate, the brick, everything that's to do with this island needs to represent something that somebody has seen in Ireland or would expect to see when they actually travel here.
Even bolder is their plan to build a mini Giant's Causeway, a natural phenomenon where rocky coastline rises out of the sea in perfect hexagonal shapes. The boys from Dublin are going to build this out on their island in Dubai. But this is not just a gimmick. The rocks are necessary to protect the island and act like a breakwater. The little sandbar of Ireland lies on the northern side of the world. Its northern shores will suffer from wave action from passing boats. Building the Giant's Causeway here is a clever idea that will protect their $38 million investment.
The Giant's Causeway is a massive tourist attraction in Ireland anyway, so everybody that comes to this island is going to go and have a look at it. Okay. The important thing is that when they get there, they need to see it. You know, not something that looks like it. We need to really recreate that.
Raymond and Andrew intend to mould concrete into the hexagonal shapes of the Giant's Causeway. The plan should work. But their biggest challenge is turning their barren desert island into a lush green land. It's an irrigator's nightmare finding fresh water out in the middle of the sea. The Irish developers are using the most modern technology to store water underground and irrigate from there, rather than using sprinkler systems.
We'll be redistributing the water throughout the island to irrigate it. It'll be as green as it is in Ireland, just won't be raining.
They have an enormous job ahead of them. Will they be able to fulfill their dream?
Skeptics everywhere, but I think what Dubai has proven is that, you know, skeptics beware. Anything is doable.
Raymond is confident, but it will be a few years before he finds out if his vision is achievable. And now, the whole World Island project is expanding. The original population of the world was planned to be a couple of thousand, with the islands owned by wealthy individuals. But the price tag of $20 million seems to be scaring off everyone but property developers. Now the demand is for resorts, not houses. The projected population has increased to 250,000. Creating a transportation network for the world will be a vast challenge for the master planners. How can they move 250,000 people between the mainland and the world islands without the tranquil waters becoming a congested motorway? January 2006. Investors have great plans for the island. But there is one final hurdle: transportation. 250,000 tourists will visit the world, and the only way to get there is by boat. The master planner needs to devise a ferry and water taxi system. If the system is not carefully organized, the world will become severely congested. Some of the waterways between the islands are only 40 meters wide and a few meters deep. The ferry routes need to be designated soon, or the channels won't be dug deep enough for the boats.
Well, every day that we didn't have a decision of where those channels would go, that was very stressful.
The proposed transport system appears quite simple. It's based on large ferries leaving Dubai's coastline. These go to one of 4 hubs in the world. And from here, you will be shuttled to your exclusive destination.
Some people have compared it to designing the London Underground on water.
The developers estimate that the world will need 400 water taxis and 60 ferries. And that is before you factor in private owners with their own crafts.
We estimate we're going to need 24,000 berths or parking spots for each of these boats. And that is going to dwarf the world's largest marina that up to now has been Marina del Rey in California.
The plans are staggering, but Lewis has even more ambitious ideas. High-tech GPS systems will guide every boat to its desired destination at the touch of a button.
We're analyzing and are already testing some of the most sophisticated navigation systems ever been attempted. But more importantly, we're even looking at underwater lights that will light the channels at night to bring you home.
2 years in, and Lewis's ideas are still only plans on paper. Then, in January 2006, Sheikh Maktoum bin Rashid Al Maktoum suddenly dies. Sadness descends on Dubai. The people have lost a great leader. What will happen to Dubai's plans? This tiny emirate must remain an oasis of calm in a turbulent Middle East to keep attracting tourists. After 2 weeks of official mourning, Dubai rises out of the ashes. On the 4th of January 2006, the Sheikh's brother, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, becomes ruler. He reinvigorates the media's interest in the world islands. Richard Branson leaps on the idea. On the 29th of March 2006, he stakes his claim on Great Britain. It seems the world islands are pulling in the rich and famous. But it turns out this is a publicity stunt that coincides with Branson's new launch of Virgin Flight to Dubai. Rumors are still rife about who is buying what, but there are still 150 islands unsold. The launch at Cityscape in Dubai in December 2006 brings new investors. In 3 days, the developers sell $80 million worth of real estate. Donald Trump Jr. has already confirmed he will build a huge tower on the Palm. Now he is interested in the islands.
The Palm, the world, all the islands that are being reclaimed here are really the next wonders of the world. To be a part of that, to combine our iconic brand with these iconic projects, these real estate undertakings that have never been done before in the world is an amazing thing.
But like Branson, he too has not yet committed to investing in the world. The world is still far from finished. An entire city needs to be built out on these islands. But the 5-year schedule for the land reclamation will be met. This vast structure is becoming a reality. It covers over 9 million square meters and can be seen from space. For everyone involved, it's a project like no other.
I don't think anything will match up to the challenge of building this project. This project is one of a kind.
Dubai has come a long way. 50 years ago, it was little more than a fishing village. Now it's boldly going where no one else would dare to go. Dubai's dreams get bigger and bigger. But with this iconic landmark, this global megastructure, they have surpassed themselves. Louis Ajamil and the construction team know they have built something incredible.
A lot of people don't think that a project like this can be done. And in fact, some people don't even believe that it's being done until you bring them here, and then they're in shock.
Today, hundreds of man-made islands stand firm, 4 kilometers out in the Arabian Gulf. Dubai has taken on the world and built it, creating one of the most unique megastructures on the planet.